the one Buddhist thought that destroys anxiety in old age. When silence no longer soothes, the quiet arrival of anxiety. There comes a moment in life, often not marked by grand events or loud turning points, but by a quiet shift, barely noticeable, yet deeply felt. It might arrive in the stillness of dusk, when the day has settled but sleep has yet to come. You sit alone in that familiar chair, perhaps the same one that has held you through seasons of joy and sorrow, and suddenly, the silence that once wrapped around you like a warm blanket now feels dense, heavy. No longer a comfort, but a quiet pressure. And in that moment, your mind begins to stir. Not with clarity, but with clutter. Old regrets. Imagined futures. The echo of questions unanswered. You notice a familiar companion settling beside you, uninvited, but persistent. Anxiety. It doesn't always come like thunder. Often, it tiptoes in, weaving itself into the spaces between your thoughts. And if you're like many, you begin to wonder, is this a sign that something is wrong with me? Am I weaker now? Have I lost something I can't get back? But let me offer you a different lens. What if anxiety isn't a flaw in your design, but a call to listen more deeply? What if, instead of fighting it, you were meant to understand it, to sit with it and even learn from it? The Buddha didn't teach us to run from discomfort. He taught us to turn toward it, to see it not as an enemy, but as a messenger, one that arrives when we've drifted too far from ourselves. In today's reflection, I invite you into a space of deep remembering, not to escape anxiety, but to gently change the way we hold it. You don't need to fix yourself. You simply need to return. So take a breath. Let it be soft. Let it be enough. And if part of you still aches in the quiet, stay. You may find that the ache itself is the doorway. Anxiety rarely arrives without roots. It may feel sudden, like a wave crashing out of nowhere, but beneath its surface are deeper currents. Currents shaped by two powerful forces that the Buddha called attachment and aversion. Attachment is the mind's reaching hand, the longing to keep, to preserve, to freeze moments that brought us comfort. It clings to the predictable, to the people we love, to the identities we've built over decades. It says, "Don't let this go. I need this to feel safe." Aversion, on the other hand, is the mind's push, its resistance to the things we don't want: pain, aging, uncertainty, loneliness, illness. It says, "Not this. Anything but this." And between that grasping and that rejecting, anxiety grows. You may not notice it at first. It starts as a hum beneath your daily routine, a tightening in your chest when plans change, a flutter in your stomach when someone doesn't call back. But these aren't random. They are signs of how tightly we hold on and how desperately we push away. Let me tell you a story. Tom was a retired Navy officer, disciplined, proud, steady. Every morning at 6 a.m. sharp, he would walk the lake trail behind his home. That rhythm wasn't just a habit, it was his identity. It told him who he was. But when a hip injury ended that routine, Tom didn't just lose a walk. He lost his anchor. The mornings that once gave him clarity now became heavy with dread. In one of our tea conversations, I asked him gently, "Tom, what is it you're holding on to?" He paused, stared out the window, and said almost in a whisper, "The version of me that could still move freely." And in that quiet admission, something cracked open. Because suffering, as the Buddha taught, is not born from change itself. It is born from our refusal to let change touch us. We want the seasons of life to pause on our favorite chapter. But life, as you know, does not pause. Whatever is subject to arising is subject to ceasing. That includes our bodies, our roles, even our emotions. When we try to stop them from changing, anxiety is the tension we feel in the space between what is and what we wish still was. But here is the liberating truth. You were never meant to cling. You were never meant to resist. Just as the lotus blooms in muddy waters, peace blossoms not in control, but in surrender. You are not your routine. You are not your youth. You are not the image of who you once were. You are the awareness that remains when all the doing falls away. So if you felt anxiety gripping you tighter with age, if you've heard that voice whispering you're losing something, pause and ask instead, what am I holding that no longer holds me? Because the moment you open your hands, even slightly, you make space for something softer to enter. There's a moment we've all known, a hush in the room, a flicker behind the ribs, a whisper that feels more like a weight. Something's wrong. You could be folding laundry, sitting by the window, or simply trying to fall asleep. And suddenly a thought arrives, uninvited. It doesn't scream, but it lingers. What if it never gets better? What if I can't handle what's next? And before we realize it, we're no longer in the room. We're living inside that thought. A world built not of wood or stone, but of fear and imagined futures. But Buddhist wisdom offers something so quietly revolutionary, so simple it's often missed. This too is just a thought. Pause here. Let those words land not in your mind, but in your breath. Because not every thought is true. Not every thought deserves to be followed. Some are echoes from childhood. Some are hand-me-down fears dressed as logic. Some are just your mind doing what it's done for decades. Scanning, predicting, protecting. A thought, no matter how sharp, no matter how loud, is not a fact. It is a cloud drifting across the open sky of your awareness. There's a story that comes to mind. Marlene, 76 years old, newly widowed. Her home had grown quieter, but her mind had grown louder. She told me, "Some days I sit on the couch and suddenly worry. What if I fall and no one knows? What if I forget something important? What if I'm becoming invisible?" Her fears weren't irrational, but they weren't real either, not in that moment. They were thoughts, and thoughts only gain power when we believe them without question. Then something shifted. In a mindfulness class, the instructor invited them to write one phrase. "This thought is not me. It is just a thought." At first, Marlene resisted. It felt silly, too simple. But over time, that sentence became her anchor. Each time anxiety crept in, she would gently place her hand on her chest and whisper, "This is just a thought. It is not me." And something remarkable began to happen. Like a knot slowly loosening, her fears softened. Not vanished, but no longer defined her. In Buddhist psychology, this is the power of non-identification. You are not your thoughts. You are not your fear. You are not the voice that says you must worry to be safe. You are the one watching the thought. The sky, not the weather. So the next time anxiety shows up dressed in urgency, with racing heart and shallow breath, just step back. Say softly to yourself, "The thought." No panic, no resistance, just recognition. As Ajahn Chah once said, "If you let go a little, you'll have a little peace. If you let go a lot, you'll have a lot of peace. If you let go completely, you'll be free." Let this be your beginning, not by silencing your thoughts, but by no longer mistaking them for truth. Anxiety often doesn't shout. It doesn't always arrive like a storm. Sometimes it comes as a faint tremor, a quiet tug in the chest, while sipping your morning tea, a tightening in your belly, while folding a familiar blanket. It sneaks in like a draft under the door, not loud but persistent, and before we notice, we've left the warmth of the present moment and stepped into the cold hallways of what if? What if something goes wrong? What if I forget? What if I'm alone when it happens? For many, especially in later years, when routines soften and silence stretches long, this gentle, ongoing hum of anxiety becomes a quiet companion. But Buddhist mindfulness offers us a return, not to the past, not to certainty, but to this moment, this breath, this body, this very place where your feet are resting now. Mindfulness is not about forcing stillness or clearing the mind. It's about becoming intimate with what is. It's a gentle act of noticing, with kindness, not judgment. The Buddha says, do not dwell in the past, do not dream of the future. Concentrate the mind on the present moment. Because anxiety is always reaching forward, trying to predict, control, prepare. But peace lives here. Let me tell you about Frank, a retired carpenter, quiet and tender-hearted. After his wife passed, the silence of his home turned from peaceful to almost unbearable. Small worries grew into spirals. What if I become a burden to my children? What if no one finds me if something happens? His doctor suggested a mindfulness group. Skeptical, Frank went. On his first day, the teacher said, don't try to change your breath. Just notice it. Be with it. Later, Frank said, at first all I noticed was how loud my thoughts were. But eventually I noticed my breathing. Then I heard the birds outside. Then I felt the warmth in my hands. That was the turning point. 5 minutes a day. In his garden, hands resting on his knees. Breath steady. No need to fix anything. Just noticing. Just returning. This is the power of mindfulness. It doesn't erase the struggle, but it teaches us to sit with it without fear. To remember that we are not the storm. We are the sky that holds it. And even when you drift into thought, that moment of noticing, that too is the practice. So if anxiety visits you in the quiet of your day, don't fight it. Don't push it away. Offer it your breath. Feel the ground beneath your feet, the warmth of sunlight on your face, the steady rhythm of your inhale and exhale. Thich Nhat Hanh Master once said, feelings come and go like clouds in a windy sky. Conscious breathing is my anchor. Try now. Breathe in. Feel it travel through your nose. Breathe out. Feel your chest soften. And whisper gently to yourself, I'm here, and here is enough. There is a voice that often arrives before the anxiety even settles in. It's quiet, but sharp, not from the world outside, but from within. It says, why are you like this? You should be stronger. You're being a burden. And though it whispers, it cuts. Over time, this voice doesn't just feed fear. It weaves shame into the very fabric of our being. But here is a truth from Buddhist wisdom, radical in its tenderness. Compassion is the medicine, and the first heart it must touch is your own. You see, many of us were raised in a world that mistook silence for strength, where feelings were tucked away, where tears were wiped before they could fall. We grew up believing that to be resilient, we had to be unaffected. To care for others, we had to neglect ourselves. We carried the weight for everyone, children, partners, parents, and called it love. But now, in the stillness of later years, what we postponed comes rushing in. Anxiety, grief, guilt, regret, and perhaps a quiet wondering, why now? I used to hold it all together. Let me share with you Ruth's story. She was 79, a retired nurse. She had spent decades tending to the wounds of others, but never learned how to tend to her own. After losing her sister, the anxiety she had buried surfaced, raw and unfamiliar. I feel foolish, she confessed during a retreat. I was always the strong one. Why is this happening now? During one session, the teacher gently invited the group to place their hands over their hearts and repeat silently, "May I be kind to myself in this moment. May I accept myself just as I am." At first, Ruth couldn't do it. Her body tightened. Tears rose. It felt selfish. But the teacher said something she never forgot. Self-compassion isn't indulgence. It's not ego. It's courage. It's the choice to stop turning away from your own pain. And that became her turning point. Ruth began writing letters to herself, to the part that was tired, the part that had no words, the part that was simply trying to keep going. Slowly she softened, not because the anxiety vanished, but because she was no longer alone in it. This is the quiet revolution of compassion. It does not demand you to be fearless. It invites you to be gentle. So the next time anxiety visits, try speaking to yourself the way you would speak to a beloved friend. This is hard, and I'm doing the best I can. Place your hand on your heart. Feel its warmth. Remind yourself, you are not a burden. You are a being in need of care, and you are allowed to receive it. Because as the Buddha said, you yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection. And perhaps, just perhaps, the anxiety that feels like a locked door is waiting not to be solved, but to be held with kindness, with mercy, with the same compassion you've offered others, time and time again. Now it's your turn. There are moments when anxiety feels like it owns us. The racing heartbeat, the shallow breath, the spinning mind. And in those moments, it's easy, almost natural, to say, I am anxious, as if anxiety were our name, as if fear had replaced the essence of who we are. But over 2,500 years ago, the Buddha offered a thought so liberating, so profoundly simple, it could cut through this illusion like sunlight dissolving fog. This is not mine. This is not me. This is not who I am. Let that sink in, not as denial, but as remembrance. You are not your fear. You are not your symptoms. You are not your survival responses. You are the awareness that notices, the calm beneath the chaos, the sky, not the passing weather. In the Anatalakkhana Sutta, the Buddha teaches about non-self, that our thoughts, our emotions, even our bodies, are not self. They arise, they pass, but they are not who we are. Let me share with you Walter's story. At 82, widowed and weary, Walter often described his anxiety as a tightness in his chest. That came without warning. It feels like I'm disappearing into the fear, he once told me. He had been trying everything, breathing exercises, medication, distraction, but nothing seemed to last. Then one afternoon, during a group meditation, the instructor guided them through this very phrase. This is not mine. This is not me. This is not who I am. Walter sat in silence, hand resting over his heart, repeating the words quietly. And something shifted, not all at once, but enough to take a deeper breath. enough to feel spaciousness where panic once lived. He began using the phrase daily, and over time, each time anxiety returned, it no longer owned him. It was no longer him. Because here's the truth. The moment you say, "This is not me," you step out of the storm and into the space that holds it. You begin to witness rather than be consumed. And that space? That's where freedom begins. Let's break the phrase down together. This is not mine. You don't have to carry it. You didn't ask for it. It's a guest, not a possession. This is not me. You are not defined by what you feel. You are not your pain, nor the stories it tells. This is not who I am. Who you are is deeper, still compassionate, unbreakable. As Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "Feelings come and go like clouds in a windy sky. Conscious breathing is my anchor." So the next time anxiety wraps around you, don't tighten, don't resist. Say, "This is not mine. This is not me. This is not who I am." Say it slowly. Say it like a prayer. Say it until the voice of fear softens and the voice of your true self begins to rise again. Because anxiety may visit, but it does not get to define you. You are not the storm. You are the witness. You are the one who remains. It's one thing to hear a truth that stirs your heart, another to live it in the soft chaos of daily life. When the phone doesn't ring, when the body aches in new, unfamiliar ways, when the nights feel longer than they used to, this is where practice matters most. Not in temples far away, but in your kitchen, your quiet mornings, your 3 a.m. awakenings. The Buddha did not teach for philosophers. He taught for people like you and me, people with dishes to wash, memories that haunt, and hearts that long to rest. So let's begin here and now. Find a quiet moment. You don't need silence. Just pause. Sit or stand with your feet fully on the ground. Let your body be exactly as it is. Take a breath. Slow, soft, unforced. Then exhale, as if you are setting something down. Now, gently call to mind something that has been weighing on you. It might be a worry, a thought that loops when no one else is watching. Don't judge it. Don't try to fix it. Just place it gently in your awareness, like setting a small stone in the palm of your hand. And now, say softly, out loud or in your heart, "This is not mine." Feel what softens. "This is not me." Pause again. Feel what loosens. "This is not who I am." Breathe with it. Stay there. You are not denying what you feel. You are simply no longer merging with it. Let your breath be like air moving through an open window, not trying to force anything out, but making space. That worry, that thought, it may stay a while, but it no longer owns the house, and it does not define the home. You do. You define it with every return to presence. So where can you use this? When your mind spins at midnight, when your child doesn't call, when the future feels like a heavy question, when the body reminds you of time's quiet passing. In those moments, return. Breathe in, "This is not mine." Breathe out, "This is not me." Breathe again, "This is not who I am." Then gently come back to what is in front of you. Washing the mug, folding the towel, noticing the sunlight through the blinds. This isn't about escape. It's about embodiment. It's not a trick. It's a truth. One that your nervous system will begin to trust. The more you return, Thich Nhat Hanh Master said, the present moment is filled with joy and happiness. If you are attentive, you will see it. And this phrase, "This is not mine. This is not me. "This is not who I am," becomes your bridge back to that moment. Use it, not as a weapon, but as a blessing, a soft hand on your shoulder, a light when your thoughts grow dark. And if you stay with it, you may just find that anxiety, once your shadow, becomes your teacher, not something to run from, but something that reminds you of your strength, your presence, your quiet, indestructible wholeness. If you've made it here, reading slowly, perhaps even breathing a little deeper, then I invite you to pause, not to finish, but to remember, you were never meant to outrun your anxiety. You were meant to understand it, to listen. Like the Buddha once taught, suffering is not a punishment. It's a message delivered in the only way it knows how. Through tension, through thought, through fear. But now, you know a different path. You've met anxiety not as a failure, but as a teacher. You've touched the wisdom of presence, the softness of compassion, and the quiet liberation of saying, "This is not mine. This is not me. This is not who I am." So I'll leave you with this. What might your life feel like if you stopped clinging to what has passed, stopped fearing what hasn't come, and instead began living fully with what is here now? What if anxiety wasn't a sign of weakness, but a sacred invitation to return to the deepest part of yourself, the part that remains, even when everything else changes? If this message touched something in you, a memory, a soft ache, a longing for peace, I invite you to share it in the comments. Your words may be the light someone else needs in their darkness tonight. And if you'd like more reflections like this, spoken gently, rooted in Buddhist wisdom, and offered with care, you are always welcome here. Until next time, breathe deeply, walk gently, and remember, you are not broken. You are returning. If something in today's reflections stirred your heart, if it helped you breathe a little easier, or see your anxiety through softer eyes, then don't stop here. This is just one doorway. Our channel is a garden of many. You'll find other reflections waiting for you on letting go, on grief and resilience, on mindfulness in everyday life. Each one is crafted not just to inform you, but to hold you gently, truthfully, like a friend who sees what's behind your smile. So stay a little longer. Let another video be the next step on your path home. Subscribe so you never walk this path alone. And if you know someone silently holding their breath under the weight of worry, share this with them. Sometimes, one sentence can change a life. You belong here, exactly as you are.